What's going on, guys? My name is Webley Webster. I'm drinking tea right now, so you know that I am relaxed as fuck. Let's do this. But yeah, commentary today. The gameplay is gonna be something a little bit different, and it's not something you have seen on the channel before. And excuse me, I feel like I have to sneeze.
You have taken the lead. 2 frags in 2 seconds. Excellent.
But the gameplay is actually Quake Live. It used to be a browser-based shooter, although now I think they have an actual download thing, and I recommend this game. You should go try it out. It's quite fun. But it sort of ties into the topic that I have for today's commentary, which is the sort of the old school shooters. And since I'm a multiplayer guy, always been a multiplayer guy, if you say the words old school shooter to me, the first name that pops into my head is Quake. And it's not Doom, it's not like Duke Nukem or I don't know, Wolfenstein or whatever else old school first person shooters might mean to some people. For me it is Quake, because Quake was the multiplayer one. That was the sort of one, the online style, and the others were single player, so I never really even knew about most of them. Excuse me. But yeah, Quake is sort of what I imagine to be the sort of great old school shooter, the sort of super fast, unforgiving, brutal action. Here with the rockets and the skill and all that, and pretty much every FPS player, every person who considers FPS and thinks about them and talks about them. Excuse me, let me turn this down in my headset a little bit. It's really loud. Let's just watch this little moment right here. Bang, bang. Sorry. That was getting very loud in my headset. But yeah, anyone who talks about FPS and like really thinks about them has had this discussion at some point. Which is better, the old school, the Quake style, the arcade shooter, the super fast-paced one, or is the Call of Duty the technically more advanced, you know, and the better graphics, more realistic? Like, which one is actually better? And to be honest, pretty much every single expert, every single authority on first-person shooters will tell you that the older ones were better, and oh, don't we miss the days of the Quake and the Doom and all those fast-paced old-school shooters. You know, like, why can't we go back to those days? And honestly, it seems like there's enough demand for that. There's enough people saying this and sort of voicing their nostalgia, to where if someone actually created a first-person shooter similar to this, like one of them if someone tried to like reinvent the old school shooter, and give you the super fast-paced action like Quake, probably a lot of people would actually play it. I probably would play it. Someone said like, oh, this is the game, like this is like a Quake, it's like a modern day Quake, it's so fast and it's like there's a bunch of different weapons. I would be very intrigued by that, and I'd be way more intrigued by that than, like, for example, you know, look at the new Call of Duty. Like, hey, we have Call of Duty Black Ops 3 coming out, and you can play that, or you can play this new Quake-style game. And I probably would choose the Quake-style game, because I think it'd be more fun. And that's like what games are all about. For me, at least, and I'm assuming for most people, video games are they're about having fun. And I think a lot of people, they lose that with the Call of Duty like, oh, is it like technically is the way the game is built? And I'm gonna take a sip of my tea right here. Ah, that's lovely. Is like the graphics and all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, graphics are important, and I actually really enjoy the way some of these old school shooters look. I like the way the maps feel, you know? The maps on old school shooters are really cool. And like, it's not something you see in modern shooters, because the maps, they didn't try to make them look like a real place. The maps were just there for the sake of being spaces to play in. That was it. It was just a space that you would play in. It didn't have like a distinct real-world place that it was supposed to look like. Like this map, it doesn't look like a real place, but it's still a really fun map, just because there's all the platforms and the vertical elements, which is great, and that is very much lost on a lot of modern shooters, is like a vertical element. I know that sounds really simple, and like, what are you talking about? There's multiple levels, a lot of modern first-person shooter maps, and like, vaguely, but you usually can't jump in between them particularly effectively. You can't move between the levels quickly and in a way that would give you a distinct advantage over another player who maybe isn't doing it as efficiently. Like, the skill of Quake, and I've actually been watching a little bit of competitive Quake, which is something that I used to do, or I used to watch. I didn't used to do. But yeah, I used to watch a lot of competitive Quake, and trying to get a little bit back into that because the matches are so entertaining to watch. And then, like, people always say that, yeah, Call of Duty, it doesn't have that kind of skill, that aim, that, you know, hitting your rail shots like Quake does, but it's the mental game, it's the positioning, it's the this, the that, the knowing the maps, and all that. And if you ask me, Quake is even more of a mental game. Ignore that. Quake is even more of a mental game than Call of Duty, because not only do you have to know your maps, you have to know the positioning, you have to realize, you know all the movement and stuff and how that works. But you also have to keep track of the item respawns and how much health and armor the other guy is gonna have if it's a 1v1, which I'm assuming it is because that's most Quake. So there's that whole mental game, plus now you also have to have incredible aim and incredible skill. So I would say that competitive Quake players outrank competitive Call of Duty players, and I wish it was more widely watched. I wish it was a bit more popular. Same actually for Counter-Strike. I would consider Counter-Strike to be on the verge of being an old school shooter, just sort of dressed up as a modern shooter because of the guns. But the aim and the map positioning and the fact that you make a mistake in that game and you're dead. Like, there's no like, oh, I kind of messed up, but you know, I'll just, you know, I'll just wait and my health will regenerate and then I'll be back and everything's fine. Like, no, if you make a mistake in Counter-Strike, you make a mistake in Quake or anything like that, you're dead. There's no coming back from that. The derpiest fight right there. Just bouncing up and down on a jump pad, like shooting each other with machine guns. So, yeah, I would consider in many ways Counter-Strike to be an old school shooter. It's like right there on the line, you know? It treads water. I would say actually Team Fortress 2 is in the middle, and you might say that, you know, Team Fortress 2 is an old school shooter. Team Fortress Classic started out as a Quake mod. So there's that whole element, like TF2, and I actually say that if you play TF2, this game is not particularly difficult. I actually really thought that when I started playing this game, it would be incredibly difficult, and I would just get myself torn apart. But it actually wasn't. I found it reasonably easy to get into it and to figure it out.
5-minute warning.
So there's that. It's not quite as hard as it looks, but it is fast-paced, it is unforgiving, and I like that. You know, there's so many games which just hold your hand through the entire thing, and you know, if you want to have kind of a babied up campaign where, you know, linear, whatever, I don't know, whatever adjectives people use to describe campaign games, I don't really care, since I'm probably not going to be playing the campaign. But if you hold my hand to the multiplayer, that's when I start to get angry, because multiplayer, it should be, you know, like a competition of skill. That is always how that's why multiplayer is so interesting to watch, and that's, you know, why I play it, and that's why I watch other people play it, and sort of fast. It's like a sport. Multiplayer video games are basically the equivalent of a sport, except that I'm actually good at it. The exception, a few on both sides, but you can't have a babied up multiplayer. It doesn't work. You can't balance that. You can't have like, oh look, this is how you do it. It's like tell everyone how to do things and give them like the most overpowered gun. It doesn't work. Like you can't make it actually function, and it's just gonna be boring for everyone involved. So what you do is you do the opposite of that, and you make a game like Quake, or Team Fortress 2, or Counter-Strike, or to some extent Call of Duty. I'd say Call of Duty is not the most babied up multiplayer in the world, although it is close. I would say that Call of Duty is definitely up there. But there are moments where it can really be impressive to watch someone play Call of Duty. And that's always great. Like, I love watching impressive Call of Duty gameplays, because they're really impressive. And they're fairly rare, which makes them even more impressive. But, I would actually say, like, the difference between a Call of Duty audience and, let's say, a Counter-Strike audience. Counter-Strike has, it's sort of the biggest, like, gap between two, on the appearance, somewhat similar video games. Call of Duty assumes that its audience are really, really dumb. It just does. The way that the game is set up, they just sort of give you, it gives off the impression that the player is not designed to know what they're doing. Like, that's not a serious issue, whether or not the player actually knows, like, what they're doing. With Counter-Strike, they assume that you are playing at a competitive level all the time, and that you are a professional player. Like, that is the difference right there. Counter-Strike assumes its audience are professional players. Call of Duty assumes that they've never played a video game before in their life, and they need someone to tell them how to do it, and to make it easy for them and fun. So, this has sort of gone off on a bit of a rant, but what I'm saying is, I'm sure actually, you know, of the people who consider these games to be better than modern shooters, I'm sure a lot of them are video game experts, and they probably, some of them include like coders rather, and model makers and designers and whatever else you need. I'm sure someone could put together a team of people to make a new old school shooter, you know? I'm sure, like, you could find people, if you knew where to look, you could find people who wanted to make a new shooter and wanted these shooters to make a comeback. And I would be one of them, except I don't know how to do any of that stuff. But if I did, this would be the sort of things I would be working on. I would be trying to make this have a comeback. So that's my 2 cents, and ignore that as well. That's my 2 cents on the topic. Pretty much agree with just about everyone else who has discussed this sort of thing. And everyone agrees that the older shooters were better. And there it is, some victory. So let me know in the comment section below what you think. And like, comment, subscribe. Obviously I just told you to comment. But like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, links are in the description below. And I'm gonna see you all next time.